Welcome to Hades Horror, where fact and folklore dance in the dark. Kick back, grab a snack, and enjoy this little lesson on why one should be weary of their neighbors. Everyone has secrets, but sometimes your neighbor's secret lives above your head. In 2007, Claire and her husband, Mark, moved into a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood in Spokane, Washington. It was the kind of place where the mailboxes were freshly painted, the lawns trimmed just so, and the silence at night felt almost rehearsed. They were newly married and full of hope, their first home together. Claire worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, while Mark traveled frequently for his job. The neighbors were polite but distant. Friendly waves, occasional nods, but never more. At first, everything felt perfect. Then the small things started. Claire began noticing the refrigerator door slightly open in the mornings. She blamed herself at first, but then food began to disappear. Leftovers, fruit, a few slices of bread. She was meticulous. She knew what she had and what she didn't. One night after Mark left for a week-long business trip, Claire heard a noise above her bedroom, a soft, slow creaking. She froze in bed, staring at the ceiling. But after a few tense minutes, she told herself it was nothing. Old house, settling noises. But the sounds didn't stop. Over the next few nights, she heard more, light tapping, faint shifting, like someone adjusting their weight above the ceiling. It didn't sound like an animal. It didn't sound random. Claire began double-checking the locks. She left lights on. But then came the footprints. It was a Tuesday morning. Claire was walking down the hallway with a cup of coffee when she noticed them. Muddy, barefoot prints on the beige carpet, leading from the attic hatch to the kitchen. She stopped cold. The door had been locked all night. She hadn't gone near the attic, and she hadn't tracked in mud. She called her husband, her voice shaking. He urged her to call the police. They arrived and searched the home. No signs of forced entry. Nothing disturbed. The attic hatch appeared sealed. Still, something felt wrong. The next day, Claire bought a nanny cam and pointed it at the hallway outside the attic. That night, she could barely sleep. At 3:42 a.m., her motion alert pinged. She opened her laptop. What she saw made her blood run cold. A man emerged from the attic, disheveled, barefoot, eyes scanning the hallway. He tiptoed down the hall, opened the fridge, and drank milk straight from the bottle. He moved like he'd done this before, like he belonged. Then he crept back into the attic and closed the hatch behind him. Claire called the police again. This time they went straight to the attic. They found a makeshift bed, food wrappers, and a pile of journals. The man wasn't a stranger. His name was Thomas. He'd lived just 2 houses down, evicted months earlier. No family, no support. He had broken into their home through a vent in the attic, possibly during renovations, and had been living above them for nearly 3 weeks. 3 weeks. He had watched them, listened to their conversations, memorized their routines. In his journals, he called them the kind ones, wrote about their dinners, their arguments, their laughter. He said being near them made him feel safe. Claire and Mark moved out within a month. The neighbors, once silent, began whispering to each other. For weeks, no one looked at their attic hatches the same way. Sometimes the danger doesn't come through the front door. Sometimes it's already upstairs, or in some cases across the street, like our next case file. It was the summer of 1996 in a sleepy Kansas town. Jordan, a 17-year-old with a taste for horror comics and late-night walks, lived a quiet life with his parents. Across the street stood the town's strangest landmark, a rotting, vine-choked mansion. Its owner was a reclusive woman known only as Miss Wren. She always stood by her window, always watching, always smiling. Jordan once waved to her, just once. She smiled wider in response, unnaturally wide. Her teeth were jagged, yellow, and far too many. The image haunted him, and he never waved again. As the days grew longer, Jordan began to change. He stopped sleeping. Nightmares plagued him. Miss Wren was in them, looming over his bed, her breath like spoiled meat, whispering in a tongue he couldn't understand. Each morning he woke up drenched in sweat, with scratches down his arms. Deep, red, too perfect to be from sleep. Whispers layered under wind, barely audible words in reverse, he told his parents, but they dismissed it. Stress, they said, overactive imagination. One evening, while his parents were out of town, Jordan sat reading in the living room. That's when he heard it. Knocking, but not from the front door, from inside the house. He checked every room, empty. Then he looked outside and froze. Miss Wren was standing in the middle of the road. Her nightgown flapped in the wind, and her head was tilted just slightly to one side, smiling up at him. That same awful, toothy smile. Jordan backed away, slammed the blinds shut. His heart thundered in his ears. Then a knock at the back door. Slow, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. Sharp knock 3 times, followed by a cold wind gust. But Miss Wren never left her house. The whole town knew she couldn't walk. Hadn't in years. Jordan didn't sleep that night. At dawn, he ran across the street to confront her, but the house was silent. Rotten, abandoned. A cold draft greeted him as he pushed the creaking door open. He stepped into dust-choked silence. The house had been empty for months. The realtor, a weary woman with red-rimmed eyes, told him the truth. Miss Wren had died 2 years ago. Her body was found upstairs, alone, clutching a child's sock. Distant child's laughter slowly distorting into static. Weeks later, a new family moved in. Young couple, renovating. When they tore out the rotting floorboards, they found something that made the crew quit on the spot. Dozens of handmade dolls, each one sewn from old cloth, stuffed with straw. But the eyes? Real teeth. The hair? Human. Each doll had a name stitched into its chest, in delicate, almost loving threadwork. Children's names. And one of them was Jordan's. If you think that was chilling, just wait till you see our next case file. To everyone on the street, Mr. Keller was just a quiet old man who loved his roses. In 2015, Naomi and Darius, a young couple eager to start a new life, bought a modest townhouse in a Portland suburb. It was the kind of neighborhood with picket fences, friendly joggers, and Sunday garage sales. Their next-door neighbor was a man in his late 70s. He wore suspenders, a straw hat, and kept to himself. His name was Mr. Keller. Each morning he'd be outside by sunrise, pruning and watering his roses. Rows and rows of them, perfectly spaced, impossibly red. At first, Naomi thought he was charming in that old-school, eccentric way. He'd nod to them, tip his hat, and return to his flower beds without a word. But as weeks passed, unease set in. Mr. Keller never had visitors. His windows were always closed, curtains drawn tight. And no matter the season, his roses bloomed. Winter, fall, it didn't matter. They flourished. Naomi tried to ignore the feeling in her gut, but the signs kept adding up. Birds avoided his yard. Naomi once saw a hawk change direction mid-flight to avoid passing over it. Stray cats in the area seemed to vanish. Flyers went up. No one found them. Then came the night Naomi heard it. Software rhythmic, the sound of digging. Coming from the other side of the fence, she pressed her ear to the bedroom wall. It was faint, but steady. Dig, drag, dig, drag. Darius said it was probably just the old man planting something, but that's not how planting sounds. One afternoon, their golden retriever, Scout, slipped under the fence into Mr. Keller's yard. They searched for hours. Naomi knocked on Keller's door. He answered, polite as ever, and claimed he hadn't seen the dog. His hands were muddy. Naomi's eyes drifted to the roses behind him. A new mound of soil, small, still wet, sat where there hadn't been one before. That night, Naomi cried herself to sleep. Something inside her screamed, Scout wasn't coming back. A week later, a storm hit. Fierce winds howled through the neighborhood, siding peeled, trash cans rolled, and Mr. Keller's fence, weathered with age, finally gave out. Loud crack of wood splintering. Naomi saw it first. The rows of roses had been hiding something. Behind the flawless blooms lay a crude, shallow graveyard. Bones, dozens of them, scattered, some still partially buried. They weren't just animal remains, some were clearly human. One skull stared out through the mud, its jaw half open in silent scream. Police sirens approaching. The investigation was swift and chilling. Authorities unearthed remains dating back over a decade. Some skeletons were incomplete, missing fingers, teeth. Others were tangled in what looked like old twine or garden hose. It was as if the earth had tried to swallow them whole. 3 sets of DNA matched cold cases. A missing delivery driver from 2008, a runaway teenager from 2011, and a woman who vanished jogging nearby in 2013. Mr. Keller didn't resist arrest. In fact, he seemed relieved. During interrogation, he said something that still chills those who heard it. I fed the roses with souls. He claimed the flowers needed sacrifice, that they bloomed in exchange for pain, and the redder the rose, the more devoted the offering. He died in prison before the trial began. Heart failure, no final words, no remorse. The city removed the rose bushes, bulldozed the garden, poured new soil, but nothing grows there now. Not grass, not weeds, not even moss, except one cluster of roses. Enjoyed the scare? Then hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around. There are plenty more nightmares waiting to be told. Until then, sleep tight if you can.